Michael, I love arguments about God and wondering analytically, trying to discern, does God exist, what God could be like, and some people tell me that I'm really going about it in the wrong way. You really have to experience it, or you have to see what organizations do, religions, different groups. So I mean, maybe I am wrong. So if we're looking at the nature of God and religion, and look at the way it is in the world today, what what might we learn?
Well, I'd say there's two. Look, there's a lot of very important things to say about that. I think that while there'll always be theists, I think the theistic worldview as such has become has been under attack for so long, and it's lost the grip that it once had. So, I think you might say that that pantheists have theists running in that regard. It's just there are too many things that are both intellectually and emotionally unconvincing about theism, including the form that theism has come to take to express itself in terms of its organized religions. So I would look forward to something, an increase in new religious views as people try to find different ways that are satisfying, that they do find convincing. And again, when I talk about satisfying, I don't just mean emotionally satisfying, I mean intellectually satisfying as well. So I think there's going to be an increasing interest in pantheism. But what's going to happen after that, I really don't know.
What is it about pantheism that will have an increased attractiveness, both intellectually and emotionally?
Well, for one thing, it doesn't rely on some of the most contentious aspects of theism. It doesn't rely on accepting various kinds of solution to the problem of evil. Although not all theists, by the way, we shouldn't brand all theists like that either. Many theists, the traditional religious response, I believe, Job's response to the problem of evil is, who knows such thing?
Yeah.
What? Who knows? I can't explain it.
Right.
That's not Swinburne's response. It's not R.M. Adams or it's not his response. It's not others theists' response. But there is a traditional religious response in there that says that's a mystery. All right, it's right up there with creation. In fact, Job identifies the two when God comes to Job out of the whirlwind and says, "Look at this." What kind of response is that to the problem of evil? But nevertheless, that's what God does. So I think there'll be these solutions. But look, I would stress something that's very important, which is that something has to take the place, and science isn't going to do it, not in the way in which you mean science. Something has to take the place of a theistic worldview. Something, some form of religion has to take the place of theism. We're going to have to find a new way, and when I say that, all I mean is that we're going to have to find a way that's both intellectually and emotionally capable of satisfying ourselves in positive ways, in ways that enables us to live honestly, openly, with one another.
See, I've always felt the reverse. I felt that if theism is not true, and I'd like it to be true, but I'm not going to fool myself, but if theism is not true, I'm not going to try to find some of that emotion someplace else, but I'll look to the world. I was trained in science. I can easily explain lots of things and handle that worldview. I wouldn't look to anything else.
The difficulty is, I mean...
I'm not saying I'm right.
Right. No, I understand it. I ask you, by the way, why you would wish theism to be right, but leaving that to one side...
well, I would like a personal immortality, much as...
would you?
Yes, I would.
See now, and theists will simply say that if you don't want personal immortality, you simply you're pretending you don't want to live forever. That's what.
I'm not pretending.
I've practically had it. I'm telling you, impersonal immortality would suffice, and I'm afraid I'm not going to get much of that either. Russell, by the way, thought wonderfully that to really understand the world, you have to understand that not just you and I, to really appreciate the world. To live in it correctly, to orient yourself. Not just you and I are going to be dead, but so too are Beethoven's symphonies, extinct.
Right.
Everything, all the human inventiveness gone forever in the inevitable extinction of the solar system. Unless you come to grips with that, he says, you're not going to be able to orient yourself correctly. Is that part of your scientific worldview?
It has to be. It's not what I want. but all the greatness and the noonday sun,
Yes, that's right.
whatever he
Yes.
said. I mean, it's a remarkable passage. Is right. I mean, if that's all gone, that's all gone, and it's very bimodal with me. It's
Mm.
either it is or it isn't. And if it's not, I would tend to think there's a theistic solution. But if it is gone, it's gone. And,
I think you.
not trying to make up
Yeah.
something new to replace it. I don't want to replace it. I want what's true.
I want what's true too, and pantheists want what's true, and they don't want anything.
I'm not
They don't want
convinced of
anything
that.
else. But I would say this: I think that your what you talk when you talk about a scientific worldview, I would say that you have actually a scientistic bent to your science worldview. And what I mean by scientistic is that
I know what you mean.
okay,
No, no,
sorry,
no. You mean that it's an arrogation of science, subsuming everything else and dismissing everything else. But I don't. I don't look at-
yeah, that's absolutely right. But in ways in which science can't do.
Well, that's the question,
Yeah.
because the question is there anything there that science is dismissing? I don't think it's a scientific worldview if you're dismissing what's not there. It's not there. Now, I hope there's something there, and I would tend to think that if there is something there, it is personal. Now, that maybe that's wrong, but that's the way I feel. That's
Right.
why I'm coming to you.
I think
Maybe
you
can help
misunderstand.
me.
I think you. Well, I don't know that I don't know that I can help you. I think here we have to get into more complicated discussions about the nature of value as such, about the nature of beauty as such. But I don't know what you would do with something like value. It's a human construct, value, and
Beauty is wonderful, but I
these
don't.
are objective. I mean, these are objective things. Value is objective. What's ethically right and wrong is objective, and
That's
I
a
think
value
those
judgment.
things can be.
That's a statement. That's a value judgment itself. You're saying it's objective.
I don't. It's not a value judgment. It might be incorrect. It's not a value judgment. It may be not the way in which I'm stating it as a matter of fact, and that's very hard for because a scientist would say, well, where are these values?
Right.
Just where are they located? And they would misunderstand the ontology of value in that case. But I would say that this, if you have that scientific worldview, and this is what orients you in a certain kind of way. Theists often say, "Oh, you don't believe in God. What a pity. I feel sorry for you." I don't feel sorry for you. If that's what floats your boat, you go with it. But I think that when if you do, I don't know how to say it, see some of the intricacies of travel, think about relationships, think about literature that you've read, look at certain kinds of these things, I think you would find that science is not going to encompass, cannot provide you with a kind of orientation you may need to genuinely, without shutting yourself off, to genuinely open yourself to certain other kinds of things that you may come to appreciate or to understand.
I look at everything you're talking about, and I see that may be right. But if it's right, and I see two kinds of explanations to it. I can see a very naturalistic explanation through science. Maybe we don't have the complete explanations now, but you can. You can understand how music is heard, and eventually how music is affectively heard. Who knows? You can take it further. I don't know how far. We don't know what we don't know. On the other hand, maybe there's something beyond science in that, and if so, I would tend to a theistic explanation, a personal explanation for that. There is something personal in the structure of reality, and I see that as bimodal, and I'm saying that view may be culturally inculcated, may be wrong. Maybe there's some other way.
I have no doubt then, and this is a question that I've been meaning to ask you since I know a little bit about you, that you think that the nature of consciousness is not cognitively closed, to use McGinn's term, that someday we will actually be able to understand, and this is not because of any kind of theistic mystery, but that the nature of consciousness as such will be understood scientifically.
I think that is one of the most important, perhaps the singularly most important probe of the nature of reality. Because if consciousness can be understood fully and comprehensively, the quality of internal subjectivity, by the scientific method, then that is the greatest demonstration. Nothing's a proof, but a demonstration of scientism, of naturalism. I personally think that that has a probability of less than half of happening.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. By the way, pantheism. I hope I didn't describe it as not naturalistic. Pantheism is.
Pantheism is naturalistic,
Yeah.
but it brings something more than naturalistic. Because if it doesn't need a name. It doesn't need anything.
Sure, it does, because it's a certain kind of understanding. To say that to say that you're understanding things naturalistically isn't sufficient.
Okay.
That's
to me that means it's not
but
naturalistic.
it is natural. Oh, okay.
To me it's either naturalistic or not natural. Maybe I'm a very bimodal person, too digital in my brain.
Well, it's everybody wants to understand things, and I think that's a good way to understand. One way of understanding something is trying not to look too far afield to other things. But no, I think that to interpret the world naturalistically, as pantheists do, as Taoism does, isn't the same thing as interpreting the world in a purely scientifically, though it's not to interpret the world in anything that would be antithetical to science.